Welcome back to Travoltine Presents Easy Riders. Hosted by Jeff Sweeney and Stuart Elmore. Covering Homefront with special guest Dan Gutierrez.
Oi, it's me, Jason Statham, born and raised in New Orleans. I'm an American DEA agent, notoriously a member of the American federal government, yeah? Bloke, I work in New Orleans, bust up meth labs and other drug enterprises. Oi.
All right, after that intro from beloved character actor and action start.
Wait, what's that? Holy shit. Do you hear that?
I do hear that.
Who's that? Who's that walking into the room? Oh my god. Oh my god. It's Sylvester Stallone.
Hey,
the writer of this movie.
How you doing, huh? That's right, I wrote this film.
I cannot. We are 1 minute in. I cannot do a full Stallone interview in character right now.
Do you like how I forced that upon you?
You did force that upon me.
I gave you a heads up.
you told me. Yeah, you didn't tell me to be 1 minute in.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Fuck. God,
you guys seem a little tired today.
A little tired, you think?
Just a skosh.
Thank you to the listener at home for listening to our episode last week on the Iceman. We learned all about crime in the poor state of New Jersey last week, and this week we're moving south. South of the Mason-Dixon line, we're heading into Homefront territory.
Yeah, we're last week.
New Orleans.
We heard about the cold-blooded killer, the Iceman. Now we go to the hot-blooded
Gator,
meth-filled killer, Gator.
And we are joined. A few weeks ago, Stuart, we had Tyler Ventura on the show.
Yeah.
To talk about his experience of working on The Dilemma.
Yes.
And we're very fortunate because this isn't the only person we know who worked on a Winona movie.
Yeah.
Because this week we're joined by Dan Gutierrez.
Hello.
Joining us.
Guys.
And he worked on this movie, Homefront.
The wonderful cinematic masterpiece.
So, Dan, to start right off, how did you get involved in the movie Homefront?
Well, I was living in New Orleans, working down there for a few years, and it just so happened I'd finished up a feature in Shreveport at end of August, beginning of September. Went back home, had a little bit of time to kill before my next show started. Had a bunch of friends working on Homefront, and they were like, "Come on out, we need you. We want you to have some fun with us." And then we went into the bayou,
Down there.
down in the bayou.
And so you probably worked on this for do you know how long the production of this was and how much of it you worked on?
I don't remember how long it was. I think I was on for probably about half the show.
Okay.
It was a Millennium film, so it wasn't a massive 60, 70 days shoot. I think it was probably somewhere around 35, 40 days
Yeah.
of filming. They were Millennium films were tighter budgets and shorter shooting schedules for the most part.
This is Winona's second Millennium film in a row.
I was going to ask, because before this, we on Travolta, we've covered a lot of Saban films. And I watched this, this seems I know it's not Saban, but it seems Saban adjacent. Is that what Millennium Films is?
Yeah, Millennium Films is a similar type of action, usually.
Yeah.
Action crime drama movie that.
Right.
I don't want to say Redbox movie, but they kind of make those movies that, because this did go out into theaters.
Yeah.
And it was a success. But they make just low budget action crime movies.
Yeah.
Just kind of on a turn, they get actors involved in multi-picture contracts in the same way that Travolta was in that multi-Saban Films contract.
Yeah, yeah.
This is it seems like Winona might have had a 2-picture deal with them or something, because she's in this and The Iceman back to back.
That's right. The Iceman was Millennium Films.
Iceman was
We did talk
Millennium
about
Films.
that. Yeah.
And James Franco's also in both these movies.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. This is the beginning of it's the end of her James Franco run.
Yeah.
And thank God. Dan, this is the third James Franco movie we've covered in a row.
Oh wow!
We've segued into a Franco podcast.
Wait, what was the one before Iceman?
He was in this movie. They were both in this movie called The Letter.
The Letter.
It was directed by James Franco's directing professor at NYU. It was clearly made for $6 and a box of gummy bears.
So a large student budget.
large student budget.
Crafty was like some potatoes.
Crafty was just like spoiled potatoes.
Prepared potatoes.
Just like with the skin on. You just
Skin on, not even boiled. That was
biting right into the
That
bad
was their
boys.
craft service level budget that they had to work with.
Yeah, it seems like Winona's kind of, she signs a little deal with Millennium. She does 2 of their movies, Iceman, Homefront, back to back. Somehow Franco gets involved in this. I don't know what's going on with him.
He's doing something. I don't know.
Yeah, he's like doing 7 things at the same time, including texting underage girls. But basically, like, to dial it back a second to how this movie comes into conception. And Dan, I'm going to ask you, was Stallone on the set of this at all that you saw?
No.
Okay.
I never saw him on that set whatsoever.
Because Stuart, do you know what this movie is originally written as?
Well, I remember this being originally a Rambo installment.
This is supposed to be Rambo 5.
Yeah. But then he got too old. Well,
so this is in 2008. Stallone does Rambo.
Yeah.
Which is the movie that ends with like that 5-minute sequence of him on the machine gun.
Yeah.
Where he kills like 200 people in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Let us never forget the first Rambo movie is a touching drama about a Vietnam veteran who comes home and has to struggle with reacclimating and loses his mind and runs into the woods. And then Rambo 2, it's like, you know what? He's going back to Vietnam. We're sending it back. And then Rambo 3 is he's going to go help Osama bin Laden overthrow the Soviets.
Oh, yes. Oh,
and then,
yes. Yes. Never forget Rambo 3. The post credits at the end of like dedication to all the
dedicated to the brave people of Afghanistan.
To the brave fighters of Afghanistan. Yeah.
And then Rambo 4 is like he goes to some Southeast Asian country and kills a bunch of people.
He's just mad.
But that movie made a lot of money. It was a big success, and they're like, he's like, oh, I'm gonna do another Rambo, I guess.
See, I knew he'd pull through.
And so he starts writing. He starts writing Rambo 5, and his conception is like Rambo on the home front.
So Rambo 1.
Well, no, like Rambo he was like old Western style. Like Rambo's has a home. He's finally settled down, and forces of darkness encroach upon his homestead, his home front. And like it ends with like a Home Alone style, like they invade his house, he takes them out, but they have his daughter and whatnot. This movie. And he's like, he's filming Expendables 2, which Statham is in.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can, do this at my age, so I'm thinking that this movie I wrote, you could do it, huh?
And Statham's like, oh yeah, I'd love to do another film.
This is a good Statham impression.
That really is.
You've been able to do that for a few years now. I've never had the opportunity to compliment you, so I'm complimenting you.
I want to quickly read. I found this Statham interview about this movie. The interviewer at Vanity Fair asks Statham, were you nervous about playing a father for the first time in this movie? And Statham says, no, it's something intuitive. A kid is precious, and you want to protect it and keep it fun. I'm not a dad, but I've seen people and how they behave with the kids. For the sake of the story, I just think it's great when you talk to a kid and they're like an adult rather than the gooey talk you see some parents use. I see Sly with his kids, though, and he just talks to them just the way he talks to me. And so Sly wrote this movie as like, here's how you should talk to your kids. Because you talk to them with like as they're adults.
Yeah.
The final thing to say about Stallone with all this, though, is that after this segues out of being Rambo 5. Have you seen the actual Rambo 5 that he makes 6 years later?
No.
Rambo Last Blood.
Forgot.
Admittedly, good title. The first one's called First Blood, Last Blood. It's good.
Yeah.
Do you know what the plot of that movie is?
No.
Rambo's on the home front. There's a young girl who gets abducted and brought south of the border, and he has to go get her, and he brings her back, and then they invade his house.
Oh my God. So they just remade Homefront.
He just is like,
actually, you know what? I think I am going to be in that movie.
like 6 years later, he changes his mind.
He's like, I don't know, I'll change some words here or there, go into the thesaurus, change the synonyms.
Wonder if Statham had any feelings about that.
It's really funny that because Stuart, I didn't even clock Stallone's name on the opening credits of this movie.
Yeah.
It's not until you texted me that I was like, Because I'm watching this movie, I'm like, this is just like the plot of Rambo 5. And then you're like, guess who wrote this movie? And I'm like, oh, that answers the question.
It all connects. But
yeah, he passes it off to his good buddy Statham. I don't know if this was supposed to be in New Orleans at the time when they first wrote it, or if that just kind of becomes like, well, that's a sensible place to put it.
See, it's like if you're gonna do Homefront, it's like you either do somewhere like swampy or Alaska is kind of
or Texas.
You know,
because that's what he does with Last Blood. It's in Texas.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna go kill the cartels with my bow and arrow. That is the plot of Rambo 5.
I feel like we've broken Dan.
And then, well, he's going to take his bow and arrow, and then it's going to be a reboot of what was it? The CW show Green Arrow.
Oh, Green Arrow.
The Arrow.
The Arrow. Yeah. Oh my God.
Everything's connected.
Everything is connected.
Here I am with my bow and arrow going to kill the cartels.
Look at his forearms. I don't buy it.
You don't buy it?
No, that's not his forearms.
That's got big, like, photoshopped poster energy.
Oh my God. That is so not Stallone's forearms. And don't get me wrong, his forearms are probably really nice, but they're not that nice. That's not his forearms.
Yeah, Stallone, weird guy.
Have you seen Tulsa King?
I have not seen Tulsa King. I know people worked on it.
Yeah. I'm just like, I didn't know if you've seen it. He's pretty good in that movie.
I watched this. I watched an episode. I watched a clip from Tulsa King where he's like in a car and he's trying weed for the first time in his entire life, like 75 or whatever, and he takes a hit. He's like, I feel like Rip Van Winkle. I don't know. I think that's actually all I need to see from Tulsa King. Is that was just an incredible sequence.
It is incredible.
My favorite thing about like the Taylor Sheridan universe is I like watching out of context clips from those shows.
Yeah.
Because I watched some clip and it was like, watch Harrison Ford own these other ranchers. And so, of course, I click on it.
Yeah.
And it's like Harrison Ford in 1923, and it is the year 1923. He's wearing his big cowboy hat. There's all these ranchers with cattle, and he walks up and he's like, get your cattle off my pasture. He's like, my grass is not for your consumption. He's like just screaming at them about his grass. It's great.
That's fantastic.
That's all I have to say about that.
About Taylor Sheridan.
It's just like, I'm sure if I watch the whole show, there's like, people like the shows for a reason. I'm sure they are good. I'm sure there is stuff in them.
It's got huge following.
Like the out of context things. I watched another one where Kevin Costner in Yellowstone walks up to like some woman who's protesting. I don't know what she's protesting actually, but she has her top off.
Yeah.
And she's just like sitting there and she's tied up to like a fence or whatever. And he walks in and he's like, you think that this is going to do you any good? This is going to accomplish anything? She's like, at least I'm saying something about this issue. He's like, back in my day, we did protesting the right way. He's like, doing his thing. And I'm like, seems crazy. Seems crazy. The cause is showing him.
Fantastic.
Anyway, that's enough about that. And we're going back to Homefront, which is set in New Orleans.
Dan, did you have a particular PA job on that? Like, were you doing background or anything particular like that?
Doing a lot with helping with background setting. It's actually one of the first movies I did that I had a good hand in a good amount of the background.
Yeah.
So that was nice personally. Other than that, it was a lot of just floating as an additional. There was one of the nights we filmed a lot of like the wooded scenes in the middle of City Park in New Orleans. And anyone that's familiar with that, it's just tons of woods out there.
Yeah.
And like there were nights that I was strictly on a Gator, just shuttling crew.
Wait, you were
back and
riding
forth.
James Franco?
No.
You weren't on the Cascader?
Cascader.
Okay.
Yeah. Not cast member Gator.
Not cast member Gator. The Gator that took the cast to set.
Yes. No,
James Franco did not take people to set. I'm saying there's a Sorry. All right. Yes. You drove Gators.
Yeah. There were some days that I had nice jobs like that. Other days that I was kind of front and center in the middle of the firing line.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of everything on that.
So go ahead.
Did you get a lot of like experience being around Winona? Was she filming like her scenes around when you were on the set?
I was there for a bit of her work. Not an absolute ton of it because she's not in the movie.
Yeah, she's not in too much
amount.
of it.
I'm going to say, she has like maybe like 7-8 days worth of filming time just from me watching the movie. I'm sure there's stuff they cut, but that's how it felt like watching it.
but she did have a very pivotal role.
Yeah.
Yeah, she gets a speedboat chase.
Yeah. She gets a speedboat chase.
It's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
I'm going to ask if that was really her on that speedboat.
I have sincere doubts that it was her piloting that speedboat.
Yeah. So, all right. What I wanted to ask, like, because we've been talking about the budget. It seemed like this movie did have a budget, though, as opposed to we mentioned Saban films. Like, we've seen some of like catastrophic CGI or green screen developments on some like Saban films, but this seemed like it actually had a budget. It had like because first person I looked up on IMDb when watching this movie was their stunt coordinator. Because holy crap, the stunts are phenomenal in this movie. I actually think like this movie had some really good like action sequences.
Yeah, it has good
like,
action beats.
Yeah, it has like really, and like it's shot like, it's not like above or below the bar. It's like right at the bar of like it's decently shot well enough. Like I won't say like there was one shot that really wowed me, but it like didn't like go below expectations. So I guess the point I'm getting to is the movie had a bit of a budget, but seeing as you worked in the AD department and we're all about like time and how all the budget can affect that and all, was it like a very like rushed shoot, or was it kind of like, you know, you had time to work things out, just in terms of that AD dynamic, how it was?
It didn't feel, you know, super rushed in that, you know, we did have a lot of sequences or some sequences that, you know, we took our time with it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a big budget film where, you know, you don't worry about time, you don't worry about money, and they're just throwing money at every problem. It wasn't anything like that. Like, I think when I think of a lot of the Millennium films, they kind of had kind of a formula to it. Mm-hmm. You know, they spend money to get the name actors. You know, some of the old, like Jeff said earlier, like old '80s action stars. You know, they have the money to bring them out. They have the money for like the effects and to have these awesome action sequences. But then in a lot of other aspects, it's like lower budget filmmaking in that you may not have a ton of crew. Mm-hmm. You know, you may not have the manpower that you want, but you're not being rushed. You know, like you sometimes are in television, where you have to make your day every single day.
You know, I don't remember who said it, but there's a saying that like in TV you shoot a schedule, in film you shoot a script.
Yeah.
And so you're saying that like that, even though this is like kind of a formula movie, it did have that sense of, we have the time, let's take the time to make this movie the best that it can be.
Yeah.
On the set.
And a classic phrase that Jeff and I have used when talking about budget levels on movies was, could they afford a trailer for their cast?
Oh, they definitely could.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's like for people like our podcast has slowly been turning into kind of like a film talk, like more so than like talking about the actors, which I think is cool. For the folks of our audience who aren't that into like the film industry and movie business, things like that, I think that's a kind of an easy...
The motion picture business.
I think that's a lot of complications go into it, but I think that's kind of an easier way to tell. Like, could you afford a trailer for your actors? That's a pretty good line for some budget levels on things. So this movie, they could.
I mean, when I'm thinking about this movie, I'm like, this is, I think... this is going to sound bad at the beginning, but I stick with the sentence. Mm-hmm. This is like the worst that a movie like this should be. I think this is like the baseline. It should have, like, it has competent action, good stunts, competently shot. Like this should be the baseline for what we judge movies of this type about.
I agree.
Because you and I have watched some trash.
Yeah.
That like where you're like, I don't know what's happening. The camera work is like there's a drone inside of the store and it's flying around the guy. The action beats are boring. They're like done in slow-mo.
It's all in a wide shot.
It's all wide.
Stunt, and it's all like stunt players. And yeah. That's why I've been drawing this comparison between like this movie and other like Travolta Saban films we've covered. Because you're right. You're absolutely right. This should be like the baseline for what those movies can do. Because it's like, again, like nothing like super wowed me, but like the stunts, very well done, very well like competently shot, and like there wasn't like egregious like moments. Like there's like one scene that we'll talk about when we get there that was like, seemed like they had to cut some shots on this scene. It's the scene where like Gator shoots his sister and then the whole meth lab explodes, because there's like just in terms of pure coverage, I'm like, wait a minute. So I had to rewind it a few times, but we'll get to that.
I looked away from the screen for 3 seconds during that sequence. And in the time for me looking away and then looking back, the meth lab was on fire. And I was like, wait, what happened?
Yeah.
Did I miss something?
If you don't look very closely, you can easily miss like Winona and the kid not being in the barn, leave when it explodes. Did you notice that? It's like
on fire.
It's so fast, like, and it's not like a shot of them. It's like it's like a corner of their shoulder in Franco's coverage, moving out of the way. It's like if you don't get that, then when the barn explodes, in the logic of coverage, they should be in there when it explodes. But if you clock that, it's like, okay, they technically got out.
Yeah.
It was like a moment I had to rewind it a few times. I'm like, wait a minute, like what coverage are we doing here? So, yeah.
I can't remember that day on set, but I have a feeling there might have been a conversation that took place between director, DP, scripty. Okay, Can we sell that she got out of there at that point? Oh, wait, yep, there it is. There's a shoulder.
There's a shoulder. Yeah.
Right. We sold it.
Yeah, I could see that conversation watching the movie.
Gotta blow up the meth lab.
Should we get into plot? Is there any more context about the making of the movie, things like that?
I don't think there's like a super bit of context about the making of the movie. I mentioned like this just kind of being Winona's Millennium Films era.
Yeah.
But it is like, you know, it's nice to just be in an era where she is working in these movies at this level.
Yeah, and I've yet to see like a egregious speed kills Winona.
Yeah, like, I mean, we definitely had that with like Sex and Death 101.
I've erased it from my memory.
The Darwin Awards.
That's a student project. That's not a Saban Films. That's a student film right there.
But like it is it's nice to be out of like knowing that we're at a level with Winona where she's just working again.
Yeah.
Consistently in movies. That like with a budget.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of just at like a baseline point with her career. There's not really too much going on.
Yeah.
She is just consistently working through these projects.
Yeah.
And it is admittedly very funny watching this movie and her role in it.
Yeah, it is because it's so not her.
Yeah, it's so has nothing. This has no connection to any other Winona that we've talked about. Like she's played heroes, she played villains.
Yeah.
She's played mean. She's played nice. She played Satan himself.
Yeah.
But in this specific movie, it's like Winona's playing like a meth
lab dealer side chick.
Yeah, meth lab dealer side chick who also bartends at like a biker bar.
I want to read this IMDb trivia bit, whether it's true or not. I think it like kind of like rounds out like what we're talking about here. Winona said she accepted the part as it allowed her to explore something new. Quote, what's creepy is that she's sober and she's running this drug operation with James Franco's character, and to me it's the epitome of evil in a weird way. If it's possible to be a victim and be diabolical at the same time, I had never explored that. There was also a slightly campy, arm candy element to her that appealed to me. She's such a complete chick. She's what you think of when you hear the words biker chick. So I hear that and I thought, so a drug lord side chick. Like, it's kind of like the role that she's sort of playing in this. And it's also like, is she a bad guy, a good guy? It gets really muddled like towards the end there.
Yeah, it's like drug lord side chick with a conscience.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Because when there's the point where he tells her, Franco tells her to offer him up as a gift, and she's there, like, he's telling Winona to offer up the information on Jason Statham's character to the big baddie.
Yeah.
As a gift to him, and she's like, I don't want to deal with these guys. I don't like these guys. Like,
yeah.
But yet she's totally cool with being meth dealer side chick.
And she's like, "Come with me, kid. They're gonna kill you." It's like, just let me go.
So
it's like, no, I can't do that. Get in the fridge.
Can I read for you some Winona content for this?
Yeah.
This is an interview with LiveJournal. Oh no, they didn't. Is the I'm about to sneeze.
Oh, bless you.
Jesus.
Do you need a tissue?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm very good. So this interview begins with her saying to the interviewer, "I haven't seen the movie yet." And so he's like, "Okay, let's just talk about like the content of the movie." And so she's like, I had just done The Iceman, which is actually something that I hadn't done, playing a mother. I'd never done that genre or that type of role. And then this came along, and I was so surprised they came to me for it. I had just come from doing these festivals with Iceman, the X-Men character himself. And everyone was talking about how fragile I was. So I think there was some rebellious part of me that was like, to get to play this arm candy biker chick would just be fun, something that I've never done before. So it was the opposite of something I would do, in that I just kind of said, wow, why not? And maybe that's because I just turned 42 last week. Maybe it's because when you get older, you just want to start doing something, just trying. And the interviewer says, was it as fun as you imagined it to be? She says, I have to say, doing an action movie is a completely different experience because you realize that logic doesn't really apply. I'm someone who's obsessed with matching, like, well, I would be over there and they're coming from there, so I would be running away in this direction. And they're just like, no.
Oh my god.
She's like, right, logic doesn't apply to this stuff.
Oh man.
And then the interviewer loops back, and this is why I want to talk about this interview. The interviewer loops back. You mentioned age. Do you think there's a double standard in Hollywood for women, that they know what to do with 40-year-old men, but no idea what to do with 40-year-old women? She says, I go back and forth. There's a huge double standard, and you see these older actors getting paired with these younger actresses, but there's something about getting older where parts, regardless of size, do get more interesting. Something that I couldn't have done because I started very young, and people associate me with the things I did back then. When I look young, I can do them now. I remember when I was like 28, there was some sort of script with a part for a young lawyer, but they couldn't see me as a lawyer because I seemed too young, even though I could have very well been a lawyer at that age. I was always young looking. And so I think looping, like, that kind of really... She does find some freedom in being older and being able to just not be typecast in those younger roles that she was at.
It's been a huge subject of our later movies.
Because she tried really hard in the 90s to break she tried really hard in the 90s to break out of her typecasting after going into like Dracula and Age of Innocence and whatnot.
Yeah.
And like the typecasting would always try and like pull her back. Up until the early 2000s into just like girlfriend roles.
Yeah.
And so... even though these aren't, the most exciting roles, she's finding some freedom in just getting to play something different.
Yeah, yeah.
And this also comes at a fun time for our show because she's doing a lot of Beetlejuice 2 press right now. I'm not going to say his name 3 times. We all know what happens. And Stuart, you watched the like Criterion Closet video?
I watched part of it.
But like she keeps talking about how like her she's so knowledgeable in film, and like she just lists off all these movies from the 40s, 50s, 60s that are inspirations to her. All these French films. She's in the Criterion Closet looking through all her favorite movies, and then she's talking about how young actors and actresses don't watch enough movies anymore to work in the industry.
Yeah,
and I just find it funny where it's like, she says all these very diplomatic things in this interview where it's like, it's nice to play something different, but you get really locked in with her and you can just see she has these aspirations to be doing like real meaty work.
Yeah.
And even though she's like, this is something different, at least, you can tell like this is not the type of project she wants to be working on.
Yeah. Right.
She wants to be working on like, what was that movie that she... one of the top 4. She listed top 5 favorite